6 days. That's all the time there was between Kyle Busch standing in victory lane at Dover Motor Speedway on May 15, 2026, and the moment NASCAR announced to a stunned world that he was 6 days between his 234th career win, the most of any driver in the history of NASCAR's 3 National Series, and his death at just 41 years old. And after days of silence, shock, and unanswered questions, his family has finally revealed what killed him. The cause of death is as sudden, cruel, and as medically devastating as anything this sport has ever had to process. Severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis. That is what the Busch family confirmed on Saturday, May 23rd, through a statement released by Dakota Hunter, vice president of Kyle Busch Company. The full statement reads, "The medical evaluation provided to the Busch family concluded that severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications." Those words, rapid and overwhelming, tell you everything you need to know about how fast this happened and how little anyone could do to stop it. But to truly understand what happened to Kyle Busch, you have to go back further than the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center on May 10th. You have to understand who this man was, what he was still doing at 41, why nobody around him believed anything serious was wrong, and how a sinus cold quietly turned into something catastrophic while he was still racing, still winning, and still preparing for the next event on his schedule. Kyle Busch grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, raised in a racing family alongside his older brother Kurt Busch, who would also become a NASCAR driver. Their father Tom introduced both boys to the sport at a young age, and Kyle's talent was undeniable from the He got his first start in NASCAR's Craftsman Truck Series at just 16 years old. By the time he was 19, he had already won Rookie of the Year in NASCAR's Xfinity Series in 2000, and then repeated the achievement at the Cup Series level in 2005 after making his debut with Hendrick Motorsports. In 2008, he made a move that would define his career, joining Joe Gibbs Racing, where he drove the distinctive yellow number 18 Toyota and became the face of Toyota's NASCAR program. Over the next 14 seasons with Gibbs, Busch built one of the most statistically dominant careers the sport has ever seen. He won 2 Cup Series championships in 2015 and 2019, and in 2009 alone, he won 9 races while also claiming the Xfinity Series title that same year. His 2015 championship stands as one of the most remarkable achievements in modern NASCAR history. During the season-opening race at Daytona, Busch suffered a catastrophic crash that left him with multiple broken bones. He missed the first 11 races of the Cup season. Most drivers would have considered their season finished. Busch didn't. He returned, won 4 races during the regular season, qualified for the playoffs on a waiver, and then won the final race of the season to claim his first Cup title. On the track, Busch was given the nicknames Rowdy and Wild Thing, not just because of his driving style, but because of his personality. He reveled in being the villain. After race wins, even standing in front of crowds that were booing him, he would step out of his car and take a dramatic bow, soaking in every bit of the reaction. He was polarizing, provocative, and utterly impossible to ignore. In 2023, after parting ways with Joe Gibbs Racing, Busch joined Richard Childress Racing and took over the number 8 Chevrolet. He won 3 races in his first season there, though his final Cup Series win came on June 4, 2023, at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. At the time of his death, he was in the middle of his 22nd full-time Cup season, still competing every week, still chasing wins. He had 234 total victories across NASCAR's 3 National Series, 63 in the Cup Series, 102 in the Xfinity Series, and 69 in the Truck Series, more than any driver in the sport's history. The story of how Kyle Busch died doesn't begin on May 20th. It begins 10 days earlier, on May 10th, at Watkins Glen International in upstate New York during a Cup Series race. Near the end of that race, Busch radioed into his crew with an unusual request. He asked for team physician Dr. Bill Heisel to meet him at his bus after the race. He wanted a shot from the doctor. The FS1 broadcast noted that Busch had been battling a sinus cold all week, one that had been made significantly worse by the intense G-forces and elevation change of the challenging course. Despite feeling ill, Busch still finished a top 10 result that was actually his best finish of the 2026 season. The following week, speaking to reporters at Dover ahead of the next race, Busch was candid about how he had been. The cough was pretty substantial last week, he told them. He wasn't hiding it. But he also wasn't stopping. 5 days after Watkins' on May 15th, Busch was back behind the wheel, this time in the number 7 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series EcoSave 200 at Dover Motor Speedway. What happened next was extraordinary. Despite still being ill, Busch dominated the race. He led 147 of 200 laps and took the checkered flag for his 69th career Truck Series win, the 234th victory of his. After the win, on video, he acknowledged he still wasn't fully recovered. "I'm still not great," he said. The cough was pretty substantial last week, but on the Fox broadcast, still buzzing from the win, he said something that has since taken on an entirely different meaning. You never know when the last one is. 2 days later, on May 17th, Busch competed in the NASCAR All-Star race. He started 23rd and finished 17th. He signed autographs for fans after the event. Nobody in that crowd, and almost certainly not Busch himself, knew that this was the last race he would ever start. Fellow Cup driver Brad Keselowski later admitted he had been aware that Busch wasn't feeling well during this stretch. But Busch's Truck Series win at Dover had quietly put those concerns to rest. When he ran the truck race last week, those thoughts were honestly kind of erased in my mind, Keselowski said. That was the power of Kyle Busch's performance, even while sick. He was still winning, so nobody panicked. On Wednesday, May 20th, Kyle Busch arrived at the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center in Concord, North Carolina, a facility located next to Hendrick Motorsports along Speedway Boulevard. The visit was routine. He was there to test in the Chevrolet Racing Simulator in preparation for the upcoming Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, scheduled for that Sunday. This was standard pre-race work. Nothing about the day, at least from the outside, suggested anything was different. But inside that facility, something was going very wrong. At approximately 5:30 p.m., an unidentified male called 911 from the GM Charlotte Technical Center. The call was recorded and later provided by the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office communications. In it, the caller calmly told the dispatcher, "I've got an individual that's got shortness of breath, very hot, thinks he's going to pass out, and is producing a little bit of blood, coughing up some blood." The caller confirmed that the patient was lying on the bathroom floor inside the complex, and that he is awake. He then gave specific directions on where emergency responders should enter the building and made one specific request. He asked that they turn off their sirens upon arrival to avoid drawing attention. Someone would be waiting outside to meet them. The patient's name was redacted from the recording before it was released, as required under North Carolina law. But according to multiple people familiar with the situation who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, Kyle Busch had become unresponsive in the simulator facility and was transported to a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. That night, the public still knew nothing. There was no statement, no announcement, no social media post. The sports world went to sleep unaware that one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history was fighting for his life in a Charlotte hospital. Then came Thursday morning, May 21st. The Busch family posted a statement to Kyle's X account. It confirmed that he had experienced a severe illness resulting in hospitalization, that he was currently undergoing treatment, and that he would not compete in any of his scheduled activities that weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The family asked for understanding and privacy. Fans reacted with concern, but most assumed it was serious yet survivable. "We'll be back in no time. Probably just a stomach virus," one fan wrote on the thread. Social media filled with get-well messages, prayers, and words of encouragement for a driver who had overcome broken legs, controversy, and a decade of criticism to still be racing. Then, at 5:40 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, May 21st, NASCAR made the announcement. Kyle Busch had died. He was 41 years old. The joint statement from the Busch family, Richard Childress Racing, and NASCAR read, "Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch. A future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport." And for 2 days after Kyle Busch's death, no official cause was given. Then, on Saturday, May 23rd, the family released their statement. Severe pneumonia had progressed into sepsis. But what does that actually mean, and why is it so deadly? Sepsis is considered a life-threatening medical emergency that occurs when the body's immune system has an extreme, overactive response to an infection. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, when sepsis develops, the immune system, which normally releases chemicals to fight off bacteria, viruses, or fungi, goes into overdrive. Rather than targeting the infection, that overactive immune response begins attacking the body's own tissues and organs. The results can include widespread inflammation, the formation of microscopic blood clots, and blood vessels. Organs can begin to fail, and once it reaches that stage, it can become impossible to reverse, even with aggressive hospital treatment. In Busch's case, the medical picture that emerged was one of a slow-developing infection that was almost certainly ignored, or at least underestimated, in the final weeks of his life. What had appeared to be a sinus cold at Watkins Glen on May 10th had been quietly progressing into something far more dangerous. By the time emergency responders arrived at the GM Charlotte Technical Center on May 20th, the pneumonia had likely already advanced to a severe stage, and the sepsis was either already underway or developing rapidly. The culture of racing makes this especially tragic. Keselowski addressed it directly when he said, "There's no shortage of drivers that would love to take my seat or anybody else's seat if we weren't feeling well, and I think every driver feels that pressure. All athletes do. It's not unique to NASCAR in that sense. We're all thinking to ourselves, I don't want to be replaced." So you try to power through it the best you can. Kyle Busch had powered through for 2 weeks while something deadly was growing inside his life. Chase Briscoe called the situation a wake-up call for drivers, saying that if something feels off, you need to get checked out. The NASCAR community's reaction to Kyle Busch's death was immediate, emotional, and sweeping across every corner of the sport. Former teammate Denny Hamlin, who had raced alongside Busch for years at Joe Gibbs Racing, posted on X, "Absolutely cannot comprehend this. We just need to think of his family during this. We love you, KB." Dale Earnhardt Jr., who had one of the most complicated and well-known rivalries with Busch in the sport, wrote one of the most moving tributes of all. Despite what Earnhardt described as a really challenging existence for many years between the two, they had reconciled, and crucially, it was Busch who had made the first move. Earnhardt wrote, "Kyle was one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history. No one can deny that. But he was also a father, a husband, brother, son, and a friend to many. My heart is broken for the Busch family. I will never be able to make sense of this loss, but I am thankful that we had found a way to become friends." Kyle Larson, one of the current faces of Cup Series racing, wrote, "He was the bar we all measured ourselves against. Just a pure racer to the core." Former rival Joey Logano, whose history with Busch included a 2017 Pittsburgh road brawl that left Busch with a bloodied face, acknowledged the loss with respect. He is one of the best drivers to ever sit in a race car. Tony Stewart, a 4-time champion himself, wrote, "Kyle Busch was a fierce competitor. Even the haters will miss Kyle." Ryan Blaney broke down in tears while recounting a personal memory from after the 2017 championship banquet, when Busch and his wife Samantha had spontaneously joined Blaney's group for a night out. The next morning, at a media event, Blaney found Busch hiding under a table with a yellow suit on, feet sticking out from under the tablecloth. "He was all-around good person, and I had a good time getting to know him and compete with him," Blaney said. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell addressed reporters at Charlotte Motor Speedway on Friday and delivered one of the most direct tributes of all. "This sport is a badass sport. Kyle Busch is an American badass." He added, "We certainly had our battles, but I would give a lot of money to have a few more battles." He confirmed that NASCAR was considering adding Busch to the Hall of Fame class of 2027, a decision that, given his career numbers, would be difficult to argue against. The tributes extended well beyond NASCAR. President Donald Trump honored Busch on social media through the official White House account. Vice President J.D. Vance wrote, "I had the opportunity to meet Kyle, one of NASCAR's greatest racers, on the campaign trail in 2024. Usha and I are praying for him and his family." The NHL's Carolina Hurricanes held a moment of silence and video tribute before Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Montreal Canadiens. Indianapolis Motor Speedway lit its famous scoring pylon with Busch's image and announced it would honor him on lap 18 of the upcoming Indy 500, a reference to the number 18 car he drove to 2 championships at Joe Gibbs Racing. Major League Baseball paid tribute, noting that Busch was a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan who had thrown the first pitch at MLB's Speedway Classic at Bristol Motor Speedway in 2025. In one of the most personal displays of grief, hundreds of fans began donating to the Samantha and Kyle Busch bundle of joy fund. the charity the couple created in 2015 to support couples seeking fertility treatments after their own struggles. Donations poured in at amounts of $18.08 and $18.18, referencing the numbers of Busch's two most iconic cars. The tributes that kept coming back to the same theme were the ones about who Kyle Busch was when the cameras were off and the racing suit was hung up. Daniel Suarez, now a Cup Series driver himself, revealed that when he was coming up through the Joe Gibbs Racing Development Program in 2015, Busch reached out to mentor him in a way few people ever knew about. I reached out to him literally every single week in 2015, and he took the time to answer every single one of my questions, Suarez said. Busch gave him detailed advice on racing lines, qualifying setups, and race strategy, even helping him navigate the English language. Over the course of that single year, Busch called Suarez 30 to 35 times. Most people knew Kyle as the villain, Suarez said. He had a huge heart and was one of those drivers and people that was always willing to give you a hand. Chase Briscoe shared one of the most revealing anecdotes about the two sides of Kyle Busch. At a joint media appearance, Briscoe watched Busch be relaxed, warm, and friendly backstage, then step in front of the crowd and immediately flip a switch into Rowdy mode. When they walked off stage and Busch was friendly again, Briscoe asked him about the transformation. Busch's response, "That was my Rowdy face." Joe Gibbs, who served as Busch's car owner for 14 seasons, came into the Charlotte Motor Speedway Media Center voluntarily just to share memories of the man he knew behind the scenes. He described Busch's enthusiasm for JGR's annual Christmas video skits, including a moment where drivers put plastic gloves over their heads with the fingers pointing up. He was full bore on all that, Gibbs said. He had a great sense of humor. When he was away from a racetrack, he was so funny. And then there was the Bundle of Joy Fund. Kyle and Samantha Busch created the foundation after their own personal struggle with infertility, and it grew into a genuine difference maker for families across the country. Gibbs made a point of mentioning it specifically. I just wanted to kind of mention that because it was so important, because that part of him, sometimes some people really didn't get to see. But we got to see it. 3 days before his death, Busch posted a birthday message for his son Brexton, who turned 11 on May 18. The post included a family photo and these words, "Happy birthday, Brexton. Your mom and I are so proud of who you're turning out to be. You're the best kid on and off the track. You amaze us every day." It was the last Instagram post he would ever make. Richard Childress Racing announced that the number 8, the car Busch had driven for 3 seasons at RCR, will be temporarily retired. It would not be reassigned to another driver. Instead, the team released a statement saying, "The number 8 is reserved and ready for Brexton Busch when he is ready to go NASCAR racing." Brexton, already a decorated youth racer, won 48 races and earned 107 top 5 finishes in multiple car types in 2024 alone. His father's legacy and his father's number will be waiting for him. The numbers Kyle Busch left behind are staggering. 234 wins across NASCAR's 3 National Series, the all-time record by a significant margin. 63 Cup Series wins, 9th on the all-time list. 2 Cup championships in 2015 and 2019. 69 Truck Series wins. 102 Xfinity Series wins. The most in that series history is his number 8 was engraved into the infield grass at Charlotte Motor Speedway ahead of the Coca-Cola 600 week. All 39 cars in the field for that race carried a small black number 8 decal in his honor. Austin Hill was named to replace Busch in the number 33 for RCR, the number 8 itself sitting untouched. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell made clear that the Coca-Cola 600 would proceed as scheduled, and his reasoning was perfectly in character with everything the sport knew about Busch. Kyle Busch would probably be pretty pissed if we didn't race. So we're going to honor his memory and make sure people know what he was all about. Kyle Busch is survived by his wife Samantha, their son Brexton, age 11, their daughter Lennox, age 4, his brother Kurt, and his parents Tom and Gabe. After winning the Echo Save 200 at Dover on May 15th, his 234th and final win, Kyle Busch was asked by the Fox broadcast crew why winning never gets. His answer was simple, and it turned out to be more true than anyone listening could have imagined, because you never know when the last one is. He was right, and he went out a winner.